So now the inputs themselves have been looking rather nice, but the spacing between them isn't that great. So let's fix that. The property that we'd use is margin. So now we have to figure out where to put that. Would it make sense to put it in the gray input selector here because it's common throughout all of the gray inputs? Well, to me that sounds good. So let's go ahead and do that. First, I'm going to play in the browser to figure out just how much margin we need. So let me pop in here and we'll set the margin of the top and the bottom to 1 EM. And then for the left and right, we'll do 0. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of space between the email and the your name here. I'm going to inspect one of these elements to take a look at where that space is coming from. Okay, so what we learned about margin earlier was that the browser would calculate what the biggest margin is between two elements, and it would use that rather than adding them together. But what we're seeing here is that these inputs are adding their own margin. You can see the orange above the element here and then below the element here, and it's actually adding them together instead of overlapping them. So why is this? Well, that type of margin only works with block elements, and what we're dealing with here is an inline element. And we can inspect one of these inputs just to see that in action. If we scroll down, eventually we'll get to the point where the display property is, and it's displaying as an inline block, and that's part of the user agent style sheet. So with inline block, we can add padding and we can add margin, but the margin becomes cumulative rather than overlapping. So let's try setting the display on these to block instead. So we'll add it in, display, block. Okay, that seems to fix the issue. So let's add display block to these styles over here, and let's add the margin. We'll save it and refresh the browser, and that looks pretty good, though a little smaller. So let's do a little playing with the margin until we get it matching the mockup above. Make sure that we're inspecting an element, and for margin, let's adjust it to 1.1, 1.2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 looks about right. I'll change it over here in our CSS. And now that we have these spaced a little bit more properly, it looks like there needs to be a bit more padding to match the mockup. So let's play with the padding here too. Now I'm just going to remove the existing padding, and I'll convert these to pixels so it's easier to play around with. So we were at 8 pixels, 28 pixels. I'm just reading from over here, 4 pixels and 28 pixels. Okay, so let's see what happens if we add 2 pixels to the top and the bottom. So that would make it 10 and then 6. That looks closer, but maybe even a little bit more. So I'll add 2 more, 12 and 8. Okay, that looks pretty much exactly right. So let's change this over here in our style sheets to 12 pixels and 8 pixels. Let's save that and refresh. Okay, so these inputs look good, but our select box still has the old padding. That's because we've set the padding there separately.